Come on then, let's do this physical media update. Hello, welcome back to my world of stuff. My name is Paul Mount. If you are here because you've seen a thumbnail of a man holding up a big pile of Blu-Rays or DVDs or Steelbooks, why not stick around? Why not like and subscribe to the channel? Welcome aboard new subscribers over the past few days. And thank you all those people who looked at my subscriber update video, which I put up on Friday. And thank you for all the comments. I put up the video to thank you, and then you came back and thanked me for the channel. So it's all a mutual appreciation society. But thank you for everybody who looked at that video. And as ever, thank you to anybody who watches videos, subscribes, and keeps this channel ticking over. However, I do note from my analytics that currently just over 55% of people watching my videos aren't subscribed. So come on, play the game, do the decent thing. If you're watching the video, or any video on this channel, you're not subscribed, just click the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a penny to just subscribe, and you'll just be notified of new content as and when it is uploaded. But you don't have to watch it if you don't fancy it, but it'd be nice for you to subscribe. So you're part of this growing community. That'd be great. So please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and all that sort of usual stuff. Right, today I'm going to be doing my long-awaited, seems long-awaited, you probably haven't been waiting for it, but I've been waiting to do it, because I quite like doing these, physical media updates. I think I mentioned this last Sunday that there would be one up on Wednesday or Thursday, and I've just been waiting for two particular items to arrive, two Blu-rays that I ordered from Rare Waves online. And although they're posted, they're in transit, they're on the way, they haven't arrived yet. So I gave it until yesterday, which was incidentally Saturday, to see if they would arrive. And then hopefully I'll be able to do a massive update of all the bits and pieces I've had, including those two discs, but they haven't arrived. I don't really want the update to drift into another week. So I thought, as it's a Sunday afternoon, there's not much going on because it's a bit blowy and miserable out there today. I thought I would gather all the new bits and pieces up and have a chat with you about them and just tell you all the stuff I've got hold of. And that's quite a lot of stuff. There's nearly 20 discs, DVDs, Blu-rays, particularly Steelbooks. I think there's about 18 or so. There's a few random stray things like books, as usual, comic book related things. So join me, buckle up. I've got a coffee, buckle up for the next 20 minutes probably, as I just run you through all the new stuff that's found its way onto my shelves in the last couple of weeks. Right, we'll start then with Steelbooks, I think, because I don't buy a lot of Steelbooks. I'm not a massive collector of Steelbooks, but I do like them. I think they're very, very nice things indeed. And when they become available at the price that I'm prepared to pay for them, I will buy them. It is the old dilemma of the physical media collector. You like to have these things, but I like a bargain. As I've said before, I like to get things with a few quid knocked off, because we all know that physical media is overpriced, which is understandable because there are profit margins for the makers and the distributors and so on. But as a punter, it's always nice when things are reduced in price and you think, oh, I'll take a jump at that. I'll pull the trigger on it, as they say. And I pulled the trigger on a few, thanks to a couple of online sales that have been around this month. I can't now actually remember how much I paid for a lot of these, but I know I got 5 from HMV. You may have seen on some other YouTube channels that people have been going into HMV in the past few weeks and finding one of the annual summer sales, and there have been boxes of Blu-rays and DVDs, and quite a few Steelbooks that have been reduced quite significantly in price. And we're talking about Steelbook 4K discs here. These are sets that would have cost about 30 quid, maybe more, $34.99 when they came out. A lot of these were reduced drastically, and I think certainly the first 3 I picked up for about $8.99 each tops from HMV, because there isn't an HMV particularly local to me. There's one within about 20-minute, 25-minute drive away, but I don't get there very often. But of course, you can pick these things up online, which is what I did. So I picked up several 4K Ultra HD Steelbooks. My mind went off then, just went off. From HMV, and they've all arrived, and I got them all, so I'll show you which ones I picked up. The first one I picked up was Avatar: The Way of Water. James Cameron's $2 billion plus sequel to his original Avatar film. It's a very nice Steelbook set, as you can see, with the Pandorans riding on the back of some sort of flying creature. I haven't seen the film since it came out. It's a funny thing with the Avatar films. I quite like them, but I don't watch them very often. I've seen the first Avatar twice. I saw it when it came out. I rewatched it before the second one came out, and I watched this in cinema and I haven't watched it again. Because I think there's not a lot to them. They are a spectacle, and I think that's what they're for. You watch an Avatar film and you're not really following a complicated story because both films have the same story. But it's all about the spectacle and the visual effects. That's what these films are for, and that's what James Cameron is making them for. And the third one is due out this winter. In fact, I think it's out this December. So I will rewatch this again. But it's just a nice disc. I quite like the image on the cover. It's got the J card. And as I said, this was about $8.99. So it'd be a fool to leave it there mouldering away on HMV shelves. I also picked up this. This will be quite controversial because I love this film and I know a lot of people didn't. It was a massive flop. It's the second Joker film, Joker Folie à Deux. I already had this on Blu-ray. That's now gone because I flipped that at CEX, got a $5 for it, a voucher. But I do like this film. I like this film for all sorts of complicated reasons because it isn't the film everybody thought it was going to be. Todd Phillips, the director, and Joaquin Phoenix, who plays the Joker of this film, had no intention of doing what everybody thought they were going to do, which was just show the Joker becoming the villain for the Batman comics. It turns out that this isn't that Joker by any means, although it's set in Gotham and it's got some of the trappings of the Batman universe. It isn't that Joker, and this film went a completely different direction. It's got some musical numbers in it, but it's not a musical, and I just thought it was breathtaking. I've only seen it once. I saw it in the cinema and I watched it thinking, oh, they're going to hate this. People are going to hate this, but I love it. And I was very pleased to get the 4K. It's a very simple, stark, straightforward image of Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker. And on the back, because it's got, again, the J card, I was pleased to get this on 4K. And I also picked up a film. This was about $5.99, I think, for the 4K of this. Because let's just say it wasn't a big box office hit. This is Shazam! Fury of the Gods, the sequel to the original Shazam, which did quite well a few years ago. This just tanked completely on its backside. And I don't know why, because it's a good, fun film. It's really spectacular. It's funny. I think that Zachary Levi, is it, who plays Shazam? I think he's got a good, nice balance between comedy and drama. And it's got a good story for it, for a superhero film. Great visual effects. There's some great dragon action and monsters. But it just didn't catch fire. And I think that's probably because by the time this was released, I think we all knew that James Gunn was rebooting the DC extended universe. So I think a lot of the latter DC films felt like shrugs, like, so what? And I think that's unfortunately what happened with this. But it's a nice, good, fun film, which I will happily watch again. And it's got a lovely steel book cover, as you can see, nice and colourful. And yeah, I'm just pleased to get this. And as I said, it was about $5.99, which is not surprising because, as I said, not a big hit film. These two I picked up fairly recently. I think 2 for 30 quid, maybe, something like that. And again, I think they were in store quite cheap. But as I said, didn't get to the store, so I got them online. Couldn't resist this one. One of my favourite Mission Impossible films, Mission Impossible 6, Fallout. I've got them all on Blu-ray, some on 4K. I want to try and get them all on 4K, even the first two, which I'm not mad keen on. But I think this is my favourite action series of modern times. And I must get back to seeing the current one again before it disappears from cinemas. Just great pulse-pounding films. And this is a really nice steelbook with really nice images of the cast and Mr. Cruise himself. These steelbooks, incidentally, all in superb tip-top condition. There are no dings or dents or any of them. They're all in great condition because they're all new buys. They're no second-hand items here. But this is a great film and a really good steelbook edition. I also picked this one up because this is one of my favourite films from M. Night Shyamalan. It's Signs. I did a video on this a couple of years ago. One of my lowest viewed videos. So I won't be doing that again. But I do like this film. It's a very unusual take on alien invasions. I think this came out not so long ago. So I was quite pleased to get it quite cheap again. It's got the J card. A very nice sort of eerie cover of the signs spreading out across the world. On the back, the signs themselves. Haven't opened any of these, but yeah, it's got the disc. It's got a nice photograph from the film, not artwork, inside. And I'm very pleased to get that. And it is my probably my favourite Shyamalan film. I quite like some of his more recent films, although he's starting to wobble a bit now. His last film particularly was fun but a bit silly. That was Trap with Josh Hartnett, which I enjoyed, but it is a slightly silly film. But Signs, I think, is him working at his best and his peak. So that's my new Steelbooks. Let me tell you a story of my day out the week before last. I ended up going to Pontypridd with a friend of mine, Yayan. His name is Yayan, and he's not very mobile at the moment, and I had to give him a lift. And we stopped off at Pontypridd on the way back. A lot of charity shops in Pontypridd. There's a Bernardo's charity shop there. Popped in to discover an enormous pile of Blu-ray discs on the shelves, all marked up at 50p. And it's not your usual generic ones that you tend to see in charity shops. It was an interesting selection of box sets, fairly new films, TV series, and I found myself piling up lots and lots of these discs at 50p each. And I thought, well, this is not bad. And I had in my head the idea of some of these will probably be worth something at CEX, which in Pontypridd is just up the road. So I thought, well, I'll buy a pile of these, sift through them, see which ones I want to keep, see which ones I can flip. Because I'm a mercenary in that way sometimes. If I can buy something cheap and flip it elsewhere, I will do that. And I bought a stack of these things. And when I took them to the counter, the lady behind the counter charged me 2 for 50p. And I did point out to her, they're actually 50p each. And she said, oh, it's all right, 2 for 50p is fine. Well, what can I say? What could I do? So I walked out with a huge selection of Blu-rays. Some of them I disposed of at CEX. I'll put a picture in here of the ones that didn't come home with me, because these are the only ones actually that were worth much money. So I think I got a voucher of about £6 just for those few. The rest, however, were only worth about a penny or 10p. And I thought, well, it doesn't seem worth the effort of selling them for that. And some of them are literally worth a penny. And I know that's the way it is with CEX these days. Very often you get a penny for DVDs, and I think they don't even take them if that's all they're worth. So I hung on to them, and I'm sort of quite pleased because some of them are quite interesting ones to have in the collection, which I didn't have before. It's, first of all, we've got the first season of The Walking Dead. I have a sort of a complicated relationship with The Walking Dead. I love the show. It was the best show on television for its first 6-7 seasons. And all of a sudden in the 8th season, just lost interest. It got repetitive. That was the season where Rick was trying to get revenge for the death of Glenn and the other guy at the end of season 7. And it just became a lot of gun battles and new characters. And I just lost interest in it. I do like some of the spin-offs that we've had. The Daryl Dixon series. The series where Rick came back with Michonne. And Dead City with Negan and Maggie. I think because they're limited run series of 6 episodes, there's not so much time for flab and extra characters. You just focus on those main characters and their stories. But the original Walking Dead, I just walked away from. However, it was nice to have the first series. Again, I've left the label on the back. Pressed, I'm not get that off now. So it was nice to have that on Blu-ray. And I will keep that because that is a good series. I think it's only 6 episodes in the first series. I actually watched the first episode again on whatever streaming service is on, Paramount or whatever it is. And I thought to myself then, yeah, I must really watch some of these episodes again, because the first 4 or 5 series in particular are very, very good. That's the first season of The Walking Dead, alongside which we have the second series of The Walking Dead, which also has the label that I haven't taken off. This is a longer season, which I think became the norm in The Walking Dead. They split the seasons into 2 sets of 8. This is the one where they pitch up at the farm owned by Herschel and his daughter Maggie. This is a slower paced run of episodes, I remember. They're on the farm quite a lot. I think there's just zombie appearances for the sake of it in some episodes, rather than the pitched battles and things that we had later on. But it's much more slower paced and character based, and with certain shock things that happen in relation to certain characters. And I'm going to keep that as well because I think it's quality. I also picked up Season 4 of The Walking Dead. No Season 3, but they had Season 4. Why haven't I taken the labels off? Most unlike me. Season 4, which has actually got its slipcover. And again, I think this is after the governor, played by David Morrissey. They pitch up in a prison and set up a community there, which of course doesn't last long, as was the way with The Walking Dead. But yeah, it's nice. It's got the slipcover, got all the discs. And the thing is about all of these sets is that the discs are, as they say, minty fresh. They don't look as if they've been washed, or if they have, they've been washed once and safely stored back in their cases. And I'm probably going to keep this, and I will probably track down season 3 and 5 as well. I think that might be as far as I really need to go with The Walking Dead. So I'm quite pleased to get those for, as it turned out, 75p. That's crazy talk. I also picked up this. I thought this might be worth a penny or two, but it isn't. And it's a film I don't particularly like, but I suppose it completes the series. I think that's the last one in the series. This is Men in Black International, which came out in 2019. This was an attempt to reboot the Men in Black franchise by lifting 2 alumni from Marvel, Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson, and putting them together as new agents and set them off on a new adventure. Fortunately, it tanked at the box office. That's the end of that. I think it's got, if I recall correctly, Emma Thompson as the boss of the Men in Black. I remember nothing else about this film, so I might actually rewatch it at some point. But again, 25p, and this again was worth nothing at CEX. So even though it isn't a great film, I will hang on to it and I will watch it again someday, because sometimes it's nice to re-evaluate films that you were a bit about first time round. This is a bit of a curio that I picked up there. I don't know a lot about the physical media releases of this particular series. I didn't think there were any, not in the UK, but there was a set there, a DVD set. I thought it might be a dodgy pirate set, but it seems to be proper DVDs, and it is DVDs, and the quality, I played it on my 4K player in the house and it looks fantastic for a DVD. Anyway, what is it? I hear you cry. Seasons 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian on a multi-disc set. I'm not sure how many discs are in here. 4 discs, I think. 5 discs. Loads of discs. Oh, in fact, I think it's about 4 discs per season. Oh, 3 for season 1, 3 for a 6-disc set. This is a 6-disc set of the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. I did like The Mandalorian. I'm not a big Star Wars fan. I haven't watched Andor. I haven't watched many of the shows in the Star Wars universe because it's just not something that particularly appeals to me. But I did watch The Mandalorian because it was sort of new territory in Disney doing Star Wars series. And I did enjoy these first 2 series. I haven't watched the third. I hear the third isn't great. But this was quite nice to have, collector's edition. I think it's Region 1. It certainly says Region 1 on the back. So I don't know if it was ever released or has ever been released on physical in the UK, and I haven't bothered to look it up. But it was quite nice to have that. And I dare say one day I will watch it again because it's quite fun. I think that it's not encumbered by too much Star Wars baggage. I didn't need to know a lot of stuff. I don't know a lot of the Star Wars characters, so I feel that I'm missing out on a lot of what it's all about and all the connections and things, which is one of the reasons I'm not dipped into the other Star Wars series that have come out over the last few years. So anyway, I kept all those. I had a voucher at CEX for about £6.50 for ones I got rid of. I already had a voucher for about 15 quid, so at CEX in Pontypridd, I picked up The Penguin, the complete series. I hope it doesn't say complete first series. The complete series from the director of The Batman. This is a magnificent series. If you saw my end of last year top TV shows, you'll find that this might be my top show of the year. I can't remember if it was not my number 1 show, but it was certainly right up there. A show which I didn't think I would like because I'm not really big on the sort of New York gangster type thing. I've never seen The Sopranos, for example, but I absolutely love this series, particularly the 4th episode where we discover the truth about Sophia Falcone and how she became the monster that she is in the series. It's a really powerful piece of drama which has connections to superhero cinema, but it's much more of a character piece, a character study than anything related to superheroes. It's an absolutely terrific series and I will rewatch that. This is a great film that I picked up on 4K. It's the classic Brian De Palma, speaking of gangsters, The Untouchables, the story of Elliot Ness in Prohibition era Chicago, starring Kevin Costner and Sean Connery. A great film. I've only watched this once a few years ago and I will rewatch it. Robert De Niro, of course, is on board too. It's a proper adult sort of historical gangster drama, the sort of film you don't really get made very often these days. And when you do, it goes straight on streaming or gets lost in the superhero rush. But it's a classic film. Doesn't have the slipcover, but, you know, I can live without that. So those are my CEX pickups from my charity shop haul. I don't often get that sort of luck going to charity shops and finding things like that. If I'm lucky, I'll find 1 or 2 discs or something occasionally. But to find a big haul of Blu-rays, I can only assume they'd gone in fairly recently. And to see them priced at 50p, I thought, well, that's a fantastic bargain. And when the lady put them through at 2 for 50p, it was like all my Christmases had come at once. I suppose, retrospectively, I should have put a contribution or something to make up the difference. But, you know, hindsight is a wonderful thing. So those are my major pickups. I also went to a charity shop near me last Thursday. I had my first appointment with a chiropractor on Thursday to do some work on my knees and legs, which would be giving me a bit of jip. And that's looking quite positive. It's not. I had a horrible feeling that I was going to have to be on the list for knee replacements, but it turns out that's not the case. The problem is the muscles and sinews and so on behind the knee. So I'm going to have a couple of sessions with a chiropractor. Nearby his office, there's a couple of charity shops. And of course, I wandered into them. And they had discs for a princely sum of 5p. Apparently, this is a shop that sells all its discs, including Blu-rays, when it has them for 5p. Wasn't a great deal there that appealed to me, but I did pick up a couple of things just for the sake of it. I picked this up. It's still got the original £1 voucher. I think this has been picked up from Asda because Asda have a deal with Music Magpie. I think it's still going on, where they supply Asda with reconditioned or second-hand DVDs and Blu-rays. Anyway, I picked up The Bourne Legacy starring Jeremy Renner. This was the non-Matt Damon Bourne film, and it's not great. However, I have a greater appreciation of Jeremy Renner these days, and it'll be quite fun to see that again. I think there's a couple of good action sequences in here, and for 5p, come on. I just picked this up because it looked like some sort of cheapo horror thing, which it is. It's called The Facility. Stars nobody we've ever heard of. It's one of those cheap, straight-to-DVD horror films. From the makers of Monsters, a dose of intense horror. At a remote medical facility, a group of 7 strangers begin a clinical trial for an experimental new drug, Pro9. As the untested drug begins to course through their veins, unexpected side effects start to take hold. Several of the volunteers are sent into an uncontrollable murderous rage. Might be all right. No, I'd buy some of these films and occasionally I put them on, and after about 20 minutes, I just get tired of the relentless cheapness of the production and turn them off. But this might be okay. I also picked this up because this is a 4 episodes from TV series I remember from the 90s. And I think it's a German show called Lex, which was from memory about a sort of organic living spaceship and people who were aboard it. It was a sort of, it wasn't softcore porn, but it was sort of slightly sleazy. It was quite thematically sexual from what I remember of some of the episodes. And I did see quite a lot of it. It ran for quite a while. I think it ran for 4 seasons and a couple of specials. And I think it was shown on Sky back in the days before we had hundreds of channels. It turned up on Sky or some other digital channel. And it was quite fun. 4 episodes on here, and it was there. And even though I can't say I'm lucky to watch it, I can leave it there for 5p. Lex. So that's the discs. If you're not interested in anything else, bye-bye. But if you can bear to stick around, I've got a few other things to show you. A few books, a few comics, and I've got a coffee, which I'm going to take a swig of. So I'll move those bad boys out of the way. I'll show you some of the books. This is one. I bought this at the same charity shop with those last 3 DVDs. This was 15p. Couldn't leave this there because this is one of the first books I ever read as a young stuffer. And it's just a massive jolt of nostalgia. This takes me back to the 60s. This came out originally in 1942, of a book by the legendary Enid Blyton, 5 on a Treasure Island. I remember it for some reason as 5 on Kirin Island, which is where it's actually set. Whether the title has been changed over the years, I don't know. There's certainly 5 on Kirin Island again later on in the series. This book I remember quite fondly, about this family of kids who go off to live in the summer with their uncle. It was very much parodied, if you remember, by the very first Comic Strip Presents film, Five Go Mad in Dorset. That film ruthlessly spoofed this particular book, this particular story. And I did read the first chapter just out of interest the other day, and it is very much, oh, ginger beer for tea. Jolly good. Can we go to Auntie Fanny's? It's very much in that style of writing, but, you know, it's a piece from its era. But I just bought it because it has that jolt of nostalgia, which I often talk about, of things I remember when I was a kid. I would have read this when I was about 8 or 9, and it's one of those things that probably got me into reading in a way. I love reading so much because of stuff like this that I used to read. I don't think I read many of the famous 5 books. I know I read lots of Secret 7 books, and there was a series of books by a chap called Anthony Buckeridge, Jennings and Derbyshire. Again, written in the 50s, very twee and old-fashioned, about these two boys and all their friends at a boarding school, and all the adventures they had through different seasons in school. They were great fun. And I think I picked up some of those at a charity shop a few years ago. So anyway, Famous 5 has been added to my to-read pile, as has this. I recently did a video on Auf Wiedersehen Pet, and thank you to all of those who've watched and commented. Not a major video, but it was fun to rewatch Auf Wiedersehen Pet and fun to do the video about it. And I became sort of fascinated by the cast and where they've gone now and what they're doing now. And particularly Jimmy Nail, who, as I think I mentioned in the video, wasn't an actor. He was a performer around the Northeast, but he wasn't an actor as such. And he attended the auditions for Auf Wiedersehen Pet with a friend of his. And the producer saw him and thought, he looks like Oz. And he got the role of Oz. And a television legend was created. And I read a comment online somewhere saying that he had made comments about the second season of Auf Wiedersehen Pet. He didn't think it was as good as the first. I think that's the general consensus. And I thought, oh, it's got an autobiography. I'll track that down. And I picked up a copy from eBay. It's pretty good condition. Jimmy Nail, A Northern Soul. It's a big chunky book. This came out quite a while ago, actually. He's pretty much retired now, I think, apart from attending Auf Wiedersehen Pet events occasionally. This came out in 2004. And it'll be quite interesting to read. This does or will cover the rebooted Auf Wiedersehen Pet, which I'm quite pleased about. I think it's going to be interesting because obviously he's had a fascinating, raucous life. And I do like Jimmy Nail. I like some of his music. It is a shame he doesn't do anything now. I do admire actors, singers who know when to stop and know when, you know, to bring the curtain down on their careers. And I think he's probably quite sensible to do so. Charity shops again. At another charity shop in Pontypridd last week, and in fact it was a good week in Pontypridd last week, I picked up this book, Batman, The Court of Owls. I think it's a novelization either of or related to quite a legendary Batman comic storyline, which I haven't read but I've heard of. This is by Greg Cox. This came out in 2019, published in the UK by Titan Books. This was £2 in a charity shop, and I saw it on the shelf and thought, Court of Owls, that sounds Batmanish. And as I picked it up, I could see the logo of Batman on the spine. And I thought, for £2, I'm going to have that, thank you very much. It'll be on my shelf for a while, I dare say, at some point. Probably in the winter, when I batten down the hatches and catch up on films and reading and stuff. I will probably have a read of that, because it does look quite interesting. I'll have a read of it, because it looks quite interesting. In that same charity shop, I picked up this, Superman Up in the Sky, graphic novel, hardback collection of a Superman series that ran a few years ago. A young girl named Alice is kidnapped by aliens, and Superman is determined to find her somewhere up in the sky. Man of Steel goes to incredible lengths in search of Alice, taking on plenty of challenges along the way, including boxing against Mito, preventing a space missile attack, and fighting alongside Sergeant Rock during World War II. Yeah, I've looked at it, and again, the issue I have, as I always have, is about the artwork. I'm an artwork child of the 60s and 70s, and the modern, realistic comic strip artwork doesn't really work for me. But I couldn't leave it there for a £5, so there it is. Finally, because I know we're just over half an hour now, a few more comic book related things. This arrived yesterday. I got this from eBay. Back in the 70s, although I was familiar with DC Comics, I used to pick up DC Comics in the 60s and into the 70s. Early in the 70s, it was a British comic which didn't last very long. It came up monthly. It was called Super DC, and it was a collection in black and white of DC comic strips. Batman, Superman. They also used to print Jimmy Olsen comics and Lois Lane, Superman's girlfriend comics. And it ran for 12, 13 issues. And there was an annual which came out. Best of DC bumper book. Best of DC comics Super DC bumper book. I don't know if this is reprinting stories that have been in the comics. Here they're all in colour, whereas they were in black and white in the original comic itself. And it's got a few comedy comic strips and things, and a couple of text stories which aren't related, interestingly, to any superhero stuff. And this was 3 or 4 quid on eBay. There was another copy with about 12 quid, which was, the spine was all shot. But this was in, as you can see, pretty good condition, good solid spine, and an amusingly ropey cover. But again, a lot of these things are just things that take me right back to when I was a kid, when I bought Super DC. I may well have had this annual, not entirely sure. This came out in 1970, I think, for Christmas. 1970, so it would have been for Christmas 1970 into 71. And yeah, just a bit of nostalgia. Bit more nostalgia, a couple of comic books that I picked up online. I won't go into too much detail about them. I've got a few more comic books on the way. I'm finding quite a few bargains online on Facebook, various Facebook groups of 60s and 70s comics that I'm interested in seeing. Whether I'll keep them or pass them on, I don't know. But I picked up these two quite cheaply. This is a 1983 Justice League of America annual. And this is the sort of the tipping point where I would have been losing interest in comics because they were becoming the sort of graphic novel thing. But here they still seem to be recognisably in the style of the comics that I used to enjoy. They still look more like comic books than desperate attempts to make comics look as if they're made for adults, which is for me where comics lost their appeal. And also picked up from 81, I think the comics, I think they're sort of collections, reprint collections that would have come out sometime afterwards. So I don't know if this is actually from 1982. It might be, I don't know. Anyway, it's World's Finest Comics, which was the sort of team-up title with Superman and Batman and various other characters who would turn up. And I read the first story in this, and it's a bit silly. But again, it's got that sort of artwork, which is just the artwork that I connect with superheroes from the 60s and 70s. And these were all a couple of quid each, I think. So I've got quite a big collection of comic books now, actually. I don't quite know how that's happened over the past few years. I need to sort of take a look at what I've got, because I buy them and then, oh great, that's arrived, and then I put them away. So I had those. These were a birthday present from a friend of mine, which arrived a couple of days after my birthday. And he knows and knew that I'm a fan of Planet of the Apes. And I think I must have been talking with him online about the old black and white Planet of the Apes comic that Marvel brought out, the sort of adult comic in the 70s. And he picked up 2 copies of that comic for me. I can't remember how many issues there were of it, but he picked up issues 13 and 14 of the Planet of the Apes jumbo sort of black and white comic from the 70s. These would be 1974, I'm thinking, 75 in fact. And I do remember the comic strips for Planet of the Apes written by Doug Mensch, drawn by Mike Ploog, and they went off in all sorts of wild directions, really proper bizarre science fiction. But look at the beautiful cover. Look at that cover. That is a beautiful cover that could be a representation of one of the films. Absolutely fantastic, of the gorillas on horseback. Beautiful cover. And this one too, although it's not so obviously related to the series, it's a really nice, evocative, quite spooky sort of cover. So I was very pleased to have those, and I will try to track down some more of these, because I did like the Planet of the Apes comic. And as you may know from reviews and videos in the past, I absolutely love the Planet of the Apes films. It's one of my favourite franchises, and I'm so pleased that it's been so successfully and creatively reinvented in the 21st century. I'm really looking forward to the next Apes film, which I don't think it's been announced the title of it yet, but I think there is a sequel in the works. I don't think Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes did incredibly well at the box office. I think it took about 400 million at the box office, but fortunately that was enough to make a profit. And there is going to be a sequel. There's going to be a new trilogy, so I'll be really interested to see where that goes, because it certainly set up lots of storyline for a sequel. So there we are. That's the stuff that I got. The video is nearly 40 minutes long, which it wasn't supposed to be. It'll probably be less than that by the time I cut things out. So I hope you have enjoyed looking at the collection of stuff I've bought recently. It's a an unusual mix and match of things, new things, and a charity shop haul that I'm very pleased with. And some other bits and pieces, books and oddities. It's a sort of an odd mix of sort of nostalgic stuff and new stuff. That's pretty much how I live my life, really. Living in the past and trying to keep up with the modern day. But that's pretty much everything I've had in the last month or so since my last video. So there's 2 more to come, but they will have to roll over now. To hell with them. Until the next video. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Stick around, why don't you? I'll see you soon. But until I do, keep taking the stuff.